from the mouth of the Minister of Finance at page 6 or page 1.1 of his introduction to his budget, which has left me asking, is this my dear friend? It reads as such. Let me read it. It says, the past 14 months have rendered a veritable plethora of examples of parliamentary action, occasioned at the behest of the opposition's one-seat majority that consumed valuable legislative time and effort in futile, unproductive, and often counterproductive pursuits. Whether it be attempts to cut essential budgetary allocations or deny an elected member his right to speak, the moving of motions or the passing of bills that defy reason and collide with our Constitution, or perhaps ultimately attempts to amend the very Constitution by the slenderest of simple majorities with no attempt at consultation, much less consensus. The courts of law and the courts of public opinion have both dealt with them, condemned in the judgment. End of the quotation. When I heard that explosion of attacks, I could not believe it's my friend who would have said that. I asked myself, is this the preferred way to persuade APNU and AFC as against reasoned consultations that your budget measures are the best for all of us? Are we only good people when we abdicate our responsibility to our constituencies and to the citizens of Guyana and agree to whatever the government puts on the table? What does that mean? What does he mean when in his conclusion at page 3, bullet 11, he calls, and I quote, on all others to join us in the steady march to further develop our country, end of quotation. Development according to whom? Real development, comrades, will only be realized when there is respect and meaningful consultation between the minority government and the majority. I come now to what I call the Ali Show. Ali Show. Listen to Ali took me to some level of love. Honorable Ali. The minister, I do apologize anytime I miss like that. Because I do like the idea of saying honorable to all men. I have no problem with that. I like to hear Ali speak, Mr. Ali speak. He took me to lofty heights when I heard his expostulations. When he was there talking about what glorious things would happen. He reminded me of Macbeth, where there's a part in Macbeth which says, it is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
That's cool.
He speaks of growth. Has this growth that he spoke about been translated into more jobs? Tell us then, what is the unemployment figures in Guyana? How many teachers are retained as a result of proper pay? Tell us also, what are the full CXT passes in all subjects, not some, in all subjects, as against the rest of the West Indies? Why does land under his ministry sell for at least nothing less than $500,000 per square foot per house lot, as against in the old days when there was another government, it was $10,000 per lot. This is a country with less than 1 million people, 83,000 square miles. which translates into less than 10 horses per square mile. It tells us therefore that we ought to even be in a position to actually give land away as the way in which the West was developed. Go West, young man, you get free land. We ought to be able to be in a position where we can say, go and take land and develop for young families. It's not happening. Instead, both local people are asked to buy at least 500,000, while overseas persons want to have a U.S. residency of some sort, the same land, the same size, you have to pay a certain kind of inflated amount of money. This is not the way that you have to develop a housing program. And then he don't talk about that he's in love with the sugar workers. And when I heard him talk about sugar workers and how he's going on and doing it at a show, because I almost cried. The PPPC government, who likes to boast about their representation for sugar workers, are the very government that threatened to de-recognize when those people decided to agitate for a decent minimum wage. Comrades, we object and shall never support the incompetence of Gaisuku. And we will not be fooled. The charade where you are seeing that sugar workers are being put at the top, when in fact, it is really Gaisuku that we are talking about. We will not keep sending money after into a hole to waste behind a cooperation that has failed time and time again, that has had a turnaround plan, that has not spun out of control, and now we're here with a new turnaround plan. We cannot support that. And this is not sugar workers. It is because we are concerned about the welfare of the sugar workers that we have to make sure that money must not keep on being wasted on the line. Mr. Speaker, there was a time when the major parties in this country shared the dream of a trisectoral economy. It was a participatory partnership between government, private sector, and the cooperative movement. The phrase that a small man would be a real man was meaningful, because you would remember how many poor people through the self-help housing program acquired useful skills, and also they were able to build their own homes. This type of economic model was successful because it afforded not only the wealthy, but the small man to grow. He also felt involved in building a nation and seeing tangible results for his sacrifices. Now this budget confirms the shift to openly supporting the business sector. Now this budget confirms the shift to openly supporting the business sector, the new engine of growth, at the expense of the majority of citizens. There is little here in this budget for the poor. We all know the song, the rich get rich and the poor get poorer. Speaker, consider the expectations of the poor as they wait to hear of a reduction in VAT, the receipt of a living wage, and the creation of value-added enterprises like in fishing, in timber, and gold. Their hopes have all been dashed. They get nothing, while the better offs are smiling all the way. Mr. Speaker, the Minister presents a bigger budget than its predecessor. This year, the budget is $208.8 billion. We have come to expect this, followed inevitably in a few months' time by the request of supplementary approvals. Each year, we are told of economic growth. This year, we're told to expect a 5.3% growth and to expect for the 8th successive year positive growth. But why then do we have 50% of the population earning $300 per household per month? When will some of this great wealth begin to flow in the direction of the poor so that they too can rise above the poverty line? Mr. Speaker, now is the time then for an increase in wages. We had asked last year for 10% across the board in the first instance, public servants, and for an increase in the minimum wage. The minister says our economy is healthy with positive growth rates. So why is he silent on the call for a reduction of VAT? Why instead of heeding our call for 10% across the board for public servants and for a living wage, he breaks his silence only to tout multi-year wage agreements as accepted by the teachers' union? There is no increase in wages. The government persuaded the teachers to accept a multi-year deal of 5%, sweetened with a number of things, like duty-free cars for some headmasters. But in exchange for a multi-year agreement, they in fact really got nothing. Nothing extra that other persons who did not agitate received. So those who did not participate in agitating for an increase, they also got the same 5%. So nobody got anything extra, PSU. Your union. Why go to the struggle to fight for an increase, is what they said, when all are going to get the same thing? We say today that multi-year agreements lock in unions. Inflation and wage value outweigh this trend. Collective bargaining must be retained, and we shall continue to battle for collective bargaining for all workers and unions. Mr. Speaker, mining is one of the traditional pillars of our economy. The minister gushes that gold production has reached unprecedented levels. More jobs, he claims, will be created. What he has not told us is the real cost of this money to the society as a whole. Go to the internet and Google Major General retired Joe Singh. The pictures you will see of our rivers will show the unbelievable discoloration and the damage to our river banks as a result of dredging and other mineral extraction in the interior. A few days ago, we saw the deadly effect of the outbreak of waterborne diseases in Region 1 as the residents of Port Kaitumo struggle to contend with polluted water from the river. There is a quote that says, and I quote now, "Only when the last tree has died, and the last river has been poisoned, and the last fish has been caught, will we realize that we cannot eat money." End of quote. Tell us then, Mr. Minister, since gold production was the highest in history, even 20.8% higher than last year, how much will you set aside from this bed to clean up our rivers? How do you intend to restore our riverbanks? And how do you plan to enhance the capacity of the Environmental Protection Agency and other environmental forces so that they can adequately police mining operations, ensuring best international safety practices are maintained? so the residents can live in a clean and safe environment. Show us some of the wealth extracted will be used to help the small man enjoy a better standard. The Speaker, this finance minister is a magician. He knows how to dispense handouts. Some real, some imagined. He's a master of illusion. Here the elderly is given a $2,500 top up on his pension. He says 42,000 pensioners will now receive $12,500 a month, each month, from May month instead of from January, as would have been the decent thing to do. Since last year, the APNU pointed out that the minimum a pensioner should receive should be somewhere along at least $15,000. Now in 2013, I find it should be at least $20,000. And paid from January this year. Answer. We must stop referring to these pensioners as non-contributory. These pensioners have paid their dues. They have already contributed in the past. You cannot say Jabio, you have to say Mr. Jabio. No, sorry, no, you can't say Dr. either. Doctor is honor. And you know it's not given to a person to say doctor. You have to say Mr. Okay? If you're doing a CV of somebody, then you say we have a doctor. But unlike Dr. Say, these pensioners have paid their dues. They have contributed. This is on their backs, on their sacrifices that today we stand. We honor them and we acknowledge their contribution. It is therefore not too much to give them a living pension so that they may live the rest of their life in comfort. We ought also to reform the contribution now with a dignified mean. But sir, the real handouts continue. GPL and Daisuko. It is these that we should examine. The minister speaking on the sugar industry asserts that, and I quote, no effort must be spared to ensure the long-term viability and competitiveness and profitability of the industry. He confesses that the $39.5 billion was spent to recapitalize and support this industry, and that last year he transferred $4 billion for the same purpose. We have been hearing about the modernization of the industry for a long time, and the vaunted turnaround plan, which could deliver 400,000 tons of sugar. Each year, targets are set. Each year, targets a few months later are revised. And each year, these targets are still not met. We need full accountability for the money poured into this industry over the years. This year, the excuses for continued failure are the same as before. But now, he wants $1 billion to be transferred and a new turnaround plan is to be prepared. The returns do not give us value for money. With an unchanged management team, money will continue to be wasted. A new technical team is needed at this industry, including the Enmore packaging plant. before any transfers can be given safely to this entity. The same applies to GPL. You have just had an example of the success or lack thereof of GPL. So people live GPL. Every time you go home and you have to change your fridge parts, every time you look at your, you have to call it the technician, you are reminded about GPL and its gross incompetence. Last year, GPL received $6 billion. In my presentation, I recall I had outlined a number of measures that, if implemented, could have set GPL on the road to profitability. Poor management was identified as one of the main causes for poor performance. Now, with the same team, no progress and consistent failure, government now wants to transfer $11.2 billion to them. We see what is happening, and they want to now give not another billion, not 4 billion, not 6 billion, but $11+ billion of our money to GPL. Brothers and sisters, how can we support this unbelievable wasteful disposal of our assets, the assets of our people? Until a technical team is likewise appointed to investigate and to recommend the way forward, we cannot support this measure. The illusion of gifts to the poor is evident here. When the minister announces a contribution of $1,650 per month to help to pay like bills of a pensioner, the illusion continues. The catch is this. This payment is only to a GPL customer. How many of the 42,000 pensioners still have bitters in their names? This is where you see the mean-spiritedness of this budget. On the one hand, GPL is giving billions when the poor receives a little over $1,500. This so-called saving of $590 million is already contained in the $1 billion transfer gifts. This is not a gift to the poor at all. It is a further bailout for a failed industry. Mr. Speaker, after 20 years and billions of dollars spent on wells, water supply programs, and miles of transmission and mains, residents of East Coast, East Bank, the city, and the hinterland should have been adequately supplied with a regular supply of water, of potable water. But we still have low pressure. We still have contaminated water and the outbreak of gastroenteritis and other waterborne diseases. School children still have to travel long distances to fetch water. You want to go to Survivor? You want to go to Survivor Byron North? You want to go to Byron North? You want to go to Byron North? Go to Byron North then. Overhead tanks are still needed. Overhead tanks, I said, are still needed. People still have to buy treated water, thus driving up the cost of delivering water to households. Martin Luther King, in a 1967 speech, asked, why is it that people have to pay water bills in a world that is 2/3 water? We are a land of many waters, and we see no relief to our water costs. The delivery of water to the first story still remains an elusive dream. So, sir, when it comes to NIS, every single contributor becomes nervous. The scheme is in dire straits and could very well collapse. The blame for this must be placed squarely at the foot of the board chairman, Dr. Roger Lunchon, and his board members. To begin the rescue of this scheme, the board must resign. Then a thorough investigation into its stewardship must, over the last 20 years, must be undertaken. This is a board which has ignored actuarial warnings in 2001 and 2007. They only woke up last year when they saw the first deficit of 371 million. 2011 report. That's when they woke up. They made poor investments. Like, for example, $6 billion was given to CLICO, and we can expect, of course, no returns from that loss. They gave $2 billion to the Maurice Bridge, and as yet, still no return, not even a reduction in the cost of travel over that bridge. They have a large amount of self-employed persons also in the mining, fishing, and timber industries. These persons remain outside of the compliance net. They are aware of the corrupt practices of business bodies, some business bodies, who prefer to pay their way rather than meet their obligations to the scheme, and they wrongly blame this failing an aging population. Now, in order to hide one of the actuary's recommendations of raising the contribution to 15%, they raised it instead by 1%. It is now 14%. But in order to please their friends in the newfound favorite sector, they engage in what I would term questionable legal practices by agreeing to pay the employer's portion of the increase along with the employee's portion. I can understand if they wish to cushion the effect of the raise on poor workers. But what help can you want to give to an employer? Is it because the private sector commission rejected the raise of any reforms to the NIS unless they would have completely revamping of the management? Speaker, in spite of the size of the budget, the measures proposed do not bridge the gap between the income earners and the wealthy. In fact, it satisfies the wealthy while it is silent on wage increases for the poor. The vision of creating value-added industries and jobs is not yet realized. The school dropout rate, the drug problem, the pervasive corruption continue without adequate remedies. Discrimination in the awarding of contracts, the building of roads in supporters areas while other areas are given far less attention, the general lack of consultation and the secrecy surrounding the award of contracts and the signing of agreements, as in the case of GPC for drugs, the selection of companies for Milo, Marriott, and the CJIA expansion project, among others, all contribute to a lack of trust, lack of confidence in this administration. They can redeem themselves, however, by respect to trade unions, restoring the convention to Critical Liberty College, by reaching out to the people's representatives, and by governing on behalf of all Guyana. The opposition will remain vigilant on behalf of all of Guyana, but we stand ready to engage in meaningful consultation in an effort to build a better country for our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.